All good? Okay. So we've got it kind of physically locked on there to begin with. You're going to have 6 tools, and it's good that we're capturing this. You're going to have a wire cutter, a sponge, a wood trimmer tool, a needle tool, a 90-degree wood tool, and a big sponge. Those are the 6 tools that you should have in your bucket, and those are the ones that you're responsible for having back in your bucket when you're all done. I love hot water, so there's hot water in this bucket right here. I'm going to put most of these tools on top of my big sponge so that I can find them easy enough. And the wire cutter I'll just hang off and out of my bucket so it doesn't get caught up on the axle or whatever. Okay, first thing that we need to do is add a little water to this, and then we want to make it spin as fast as it can spin. Okay? Then the very first thing I'm going to do is kind of push down gently with my right hand. And then before I start to push in with my left hand, I'm going to drag my finger along the base, and that's going to seal the clay to the wheel head so that it doesn't slide off. This kind of creates a vacuum seal, if you will. Okay? Now, one of the things that I'm going to be referencing is a clock and times on the clock so that you understand how this works conceptually. 12 is at the top, 3 is here, 6 is here, and 9 o'clock is here, just like on a regular clock. Okay? When I'm pushing my hands in to make this get taller, I'm using my left hand. I'm using the palm of my left hand right about here, and I'm pushing it at 6 o'clock. Okay? My right hand is going to be almost like karate chopping right here, which is about 4:30. Okay? So, notice that I put my elbow in where my leg and my stomach come together. That little kind of natural L shape. I'm using my whole body to push into the clay, not just my arm. And my right elbow is on my right knee. My foot is not on the pedal. The pedal is pushed all the way forward and my foot is off the pedal. Okay? I'm trying to center the clay right now. And centering the clay is like balancing on a bike. Once you learn how to do this and once you learn how it feels to get it center, you'll be able to do it over and over again. But until then, it's kind of like you have training wheels. Okay? So the first thing I'm doing is pushing in, and then I'm pushing down and rounding off. And then I'm pushing in, and I'm pushing down and rounding off. Okay? Whenever you're pushing in, you cannot be pushing down. You have to let the clay go somewhere. If you're pushing in, it needs to get taller. If you're pushing down, it needs to get wider. Okay? So you're either doing one or the other. At some point, you will be doing both to kind of really lock in the centering. Okay? So I'm going to do that again. This is called wheel wedging. Okay? So we've wedged on the table. Now we're wedging on the wheel. And this again helps the clay get even in consistency. And it helps it so that you can center it. So right here at the very end, what you're seeing me do is fine-tuning the shape, and I am pushing in and down simultaneously to get the optimum shape that we want to throw with. This optimum shape is an upside-down bowl. It's flat on the top, and then it rounds off, and then the walls are fairly straight on the side, except for how it kind of curves to the wheel end. Okay, so this is the perfect shape. If it's center, you're going to do the hand rest check. You're going to put your hand on it like this, cup your fingers over it, and it should be just like that. It should not wobble at all. If it wobbles even a little bit, it is not center. Continue to do your centering. Okay, because if it's not centered from the beginning, it's not ever going to be centered from that point forward. Okay, it either is or is not. So off center, hand rest check. Wobbly, not good. I need to continue centering. Okay, so pushing in with my left hand, pushing down with my right hand and rounding off, and I'm not doing big movements. I'm just doing a little bit. And anytime you take your hands off the clay or put your hands on the clay, nice and slow. Okay. If it's center, and currently it is center, if I feel like I have it centered and I have pressure on this and I go off fast, it goes off center. It goes off center because it remembers the last moment that you were touching it. If you move your hands off slowly, it has lots of points of memory. If you move your hands fast, it has that single moment that you took off your hand, and that's what it remembers where it last had the pressure. So it's not center again, so I need to center it again. Yeah, so my left hand, I'm using, and you can even see, I'll just leave the mark. So the clay was touching right here, And so I'm using that part of the palm of my hand is pushing in at 6 o'clock. Okay? And this is just kind of lazily cupping around it. Okay? And I'm going to tell you right now, this clay has sand in it. It's supposed to have sand in it, and it gets coarse. If your hand starts to get sore, you're pushing too hard down on the wheel head. It should just be gliding across the wheel head. Okay? And you will get a callus. It's the potter's callus. Anytime you do anything over and over again, you will get a callus. Like if you're in gymnastics, you get calluses. If you're a gardener, you get calluses from doing gardening, okay? So you're gonna get calluses for this, and it's gonna start to take away that pain that you're getting on your hand, okay? So just if you're feeling that, it's you're pushing too hard down onto the wheel head itself. Okay, so this is the shape that we want. You're gonna make a C with your left hand. My elbows are always tucked into my body. You're going to take your index finger and put it over your middle finger. You're going to rest these fingers on the C, and you're going to start from the outside, working your way in towards the center, and you're going to push down. What we're doing right now is creating the well. And I slowly take my hands out, and now you'll see that I have kind of an inverted cone or a funnel shape. Okay? And that is exactly the shape that we're looking for. Okay, right now that base clay is a little thick, so I'm going to go ahead and visually I can tell that it's a little thick. So I'm going to go ahead and make that well a little bit deeper. And your goal depth between your fingertip and the wheel head should be about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch of clay. So I'm going to push this down just a little bit deeper. Then I'm going to stop the wheel, and I'm going to measure how thick that base clay is down there. So you're going to take your needle tool, you're going to stab it into the clay, you're going to put your hand, Cottrell, down at the bottom of the needle tool, and you're going to hold it. You're going to pinch the needle tool, and you're going to pull it out, and you're going to take the measurement of your clay. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and take my finger down there to the bottom of the needle tool, hold it, pull it out, and that is a 1/2 inch of clay. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Okay? So that's how you measure the base clay if you can't do it visually. Okay, that's how you measure it, okay? So now I need to widen that well. So I'm going to change the speed of this now. Up until this point, it's been full speed ahead. Okay, now I'm going to do about half speed. So this is full speed, and this is about half speed. You can kind of hear the difference in the hum of the wheel, okay? So I get my hands wet. I'm going to grab my sponge and put a little bit of water on the inside there. Now, I had that C and I had my index finger over my middle finger. That's what I did to create the well. Now I'm going to widen the well. I'm going to make that well wider at the base because it's that funnel shape, right? It's like a V, and I want it to be more like this shape in there, okay? So it's this, and I want it to be this. So what I'm going to do so you can see this is I'm going to close that C. I'm going to put my index finger and middle finger right next to each other now, and then I'm going to bend my middle finger so that they're level. And then I'm going to put this hand onto this other hand like this, kind of locking my thumb on here. And I'm going to put these fingers down to the bottom of the well, and I'm going to pull these fingers to the palm of my hand, leaving about 1 inch or 1.5 inches of clay between my fingertips and the palm of my hand. Okay? So you're not going to go all the way through, otherwise you're going to rip a ring off, and that's where it flies off and it almost hits somebody. Okay? That's what happened to me the first time I threw. Okay, so I just wanted to show you here what it looks like because you're not going to be able to see it down here. So, fingers are down at the bottom of the well, and I'm going to widen this well toward the palm of my hand, nice and slow, and then I'm going to slowly open up my fingers and slowly take my hands off the clay. Okay, and that's what it looks like. Now the well is a lot wider. Okay, the next thing that we need to do is clean off and clean out the water that's inside the clay. So you just take your small sponge and rinse it out a couple times. And this is called compressing the base clay. So I am putting a little bit of pressure. I'm pushing down on my sponge, and I'm going from the center of the well to about 3 o'clock, straight across, back and forth, pressing a little bit down on the clay, making the base clay nice and smooth and flat. And then I clean up the water so that there's no water in there, okay? It's going a little fast still, so I'm going to slow it down, and all you have to do is tap the back side of the pedal. So I'm not even, my whole foot is not on the pedal, my heel is on the floor over here, and I'm using the tip of my toe to tap the back of the pedal to make this slower, okay? And that's almost a little bit too slow, so you can use your hand too if you want. So you can have real good control over how much you're pushing the pedal and how much you're letting off, okay? All right, so now we're about a quarter speed. I'm going to do this little in cut right here, this little undercut. I'm using my index finger, I'm using my right hand, and I'm pushing it at about 430. Okay? Now, I'm just going to clean off a little bit of the clay that kind of tore off and stuck on the side of my clay here. I'm just using my sponge. I'm not putting any pressure on there. I'm just kind of dragging my sponge across that. Okay, so up until this point, my left hand has been on the outside. My right hand has been on the inside. It's the one that made the well. It's what widened the well. Now, I've literally shifted gears. My gears quarter speeds, speed-wise. My left hand is going to go inside, and my right hand is going to be on the outside. And I make like this butterfly. Okay, you kind of lock your thumbs. That way you can really have total control of where your fingers are. When you're getting down in here, you're going to pinch the clay, and you're going to pull the walls up, and it's going to grow taller. Okay? So, I get my hands wet, I make sure that they're wet so that they don't stick to the clay. My elbows are on my legs, and I'm going to pinch the wall and lift. And it's not going to lift too much this first time, but the walls are getting a little bit thinner. And then I'm going to get to the top, and I'm going to stop and slowly open up my fingers. And then using my sponge here, I'm going to make a C with my left hand, and I'm going to compress this lip right over the top of my C. That's making that lip nice and flat again, okay? Then I'm going to do that undercut again.
Why are you doing
That undercut, you see how it makes like a little groove? That lets you know that that's where your outside fingers go. And because your outside fingers are at the level of the wheel head, your inside fingers are at the level of the well. They're naturally staggered. The outside finger, or the inside finger, sorry, pushes out, and it creates this little wave. And then the outside finger goes underneath that wave, and you pull that wave up, and that's how you get height on your wall. So watch this time. I'm going to do it. That wave's going to come up. You see it coming up the clay, and then it stops at the lip, and then I stop and slowly open up my hand. And then I compress my lip, and it's starting to get a little bit taller. It doesn't get too tall. You don't want it to get too tall too fast. That's one of the single hardest things for beginners to learn, is how much to pinch and how much to pull up in each pull, because we want to see change, but if you want to try to create too much change too quickly, it'll go out of control for you. So watch that wave come up the wall again. And then watch how tall it gets. Okay, now my lip is a little uneven. So I'm going to take my needle tool. I'm going to make that C with my left hand, and I'm going to glide this needle tool right on top of my thumb, cutting off the lip and lifting it off, making like a little donut. Okay? Now it's nice and level again. I usually put these donuts like that, and I actually stab my tools into the clay so I can find them. I'm going to compress that lip again. Undercut again. Okay, a little piece of clay came off there, no big deal. And now I'm going to pinch and pull the wall up again. When you get to the lip, you stop and slowly open up your hands. Okay? Again, I make this look really easy. I've been doing this for longer than you've been alive. Okay, so don't worry if yours doesn't look like this. It's probably not going to look like this. If you can even get your clay centered in the next week to 2 weeks, that's going to be a big darn deal, because that's just like riding a bike, taking your training wheels off. If you're centered your clay, you've taken your training wheels off. Now you can start to cruise down hills and slam on your brakes and throw a whammy. It's always fun. Okay, so I'm going to lift this one more time. Let's see how tall I can get this. So I got to get my hand wet, put it on the inside here, pinch, pull. Tried to pull too much, that's why it kind of got a little lopsided there. It's okay. Slowly open up your hand. Okay, so there's a little bit of water down inside here, so I'm just going to kind of carefully try to put my hand down in here and scoop up that water so that there's no water down there. And this really is what I'm trying to get you guys to throw is a cylinder that's about 4 inches wide and about 4 inches to 6 inches, excuse me. And right now this lip is flaring out, so I'm going to come in here and choke it. This is called collaring, okay? And that made that lip not flare out anymore. You can use a tool like your wood tool. Put your hand in here, and you want these walls to be fairly straight, so I'm going to kind of push the walls out to my wood tool here. Making those walls a little bit straighter. There we go. And it was starting to stick. That's why it started getting wobbly. My inside hand was too dry. And it made it a little wobbly. Okay, so this is really ideally the shape, the size. Now I'm going to clean up the bottom because it's a little uneven here. So I'm using my wood trim tool and I'm trimming off some of the excess clay off the bottom. I'm going to clean that clay off the wheel head here. Sorry, it's time to clean up. We're almost here. I'm going to show you how to clean it. It's not going to take very long. So I undercut so that there's a little shadow line underneath there. That way it looks like your cup is floating above the surface instead of growing out of the table again, just like our masks that we did that shadow line. That shadow line is always so important to pottery because you don't want your things to look like they're growing out of tables. Sorry, I gotta see if I can hit my little sleep. Okay, now to get this off of the wheel, you take your sponge, your small sponge, you put a little bit of water on the wheel head. Can you hand me one of those boards right there? Yeah, just right off the top, thank you. So you want to get one of these boards, set it on the corner, grab your wire cutter. You want to do like you're doing dental floss, okay? You're going to put your thumbs on it, drag this water underneath your pot, and I did it kind of fast. Just trying to get that water to go underneath the pot, okay, so that it's now not stuck on there anymore. And I can come in here and I can slide it off and I can lift it and then put it onto my board like that, okay? Now, cleaning. I can get this done in about 2.5 minutes. So right now it's about 13 till maybe. Okay, so let's see. So I took my flat wood tool and cleaned off the wheel head. Okay? I'm going to put all of my tools up. I would either put them on my wheel head or on my stool, but for today I'm putting it on this board since this board is here. And I now have 6 tools up and out of the way. Okay? I'm going to put this just right here, just so you can see that's out of the way. Move my stool. And the first order of business is to grab my big sponge. And I'm going to wipe off the wheel head. Then start on this side and kind of do a sweep around and underneath your wheel to get all that excess water that you've been throwing with out. Okay, there's a little bit of extra clay here. All of this extra clay should go on that little plaster slab. Can I hand this to you? Would you mind putting it right there? Thank you. Just make like a little pancake out of that. Okay, then scoop up as much water as you can with your sponge. Rinse it off in the water so that it's fairly clean. Set this over here for just a second. I would normally just have it right here on the wheel head, but I want you guys to be able to see what I'm doing. So you're going to kind of sweep in here Get all that water off and clay off the sides, off the base. Take your sponge again, rinse it a couple times. Rinsing off my bucket a little bit here. I'm going to do one last quick sweep with the dirty sponge. My wheel is fairly clean, but it's not totally clean yet. Okay. Now I'm going to go over to the sink. When I go over to the sink, the only things that I bring with me over there is my bucket and my 2 sponges. Okay, can you push pause on that for a sec? Thank you, or just the red button.